All right, today we heard how Justice Minister Andrew Little believes Australia's deportation laws are breaching human rights. Their new rules are tossing Kiwi citizens out and sending them here, and many of them have spent their whole lives in Aussie. So when they get here, it can actually feel like the farthest thing from home.
In the past 3 years, about 1,300 Kiwis have been deported back to New Zealand. And hundreds more are still detained in Australia, like Aiden Brown.
They are planning to try and send me home to a place I know nothing about. I have 2 kids here. I don't really want to leave. They're breaking up families. And if I was to go back, I don't know anyone there.
Aussie Immigration Minister Peter Dutton's reasons ranged from they were convicted criminals all the way down to it was suspected they might have gang connections. That was enough to send them home, a home that isn't really theirs anymore, leaving behind kids, families and lives in Australia.
I just think it's disgusting what they're doing to people. You know, Peter Dutton needs to see what he's doing to families and how he's affecting people's lives and that.
When they get here, they're left to fend for themselves. Basically, a measly sum of money, a few nights in a motel, and then that's it.
Very little support. I'm lucky I knew a couple of people here and they took me in and, lucky I had a couple of skills and found a job, so yeah.
In many cases, they're ex-cons without any prospects, so it's back to a life of crime to get by, or to life on the streets. But others, like Ant, have managed to make a real go of it.
May last year I started a company myself, so I've just been chipping away at that. And I actually ended up hiring a fair few deportees as well.
Australia has put its foot down, so is it about time New Zealand stepped up?
Well, earlier today we spoke to Philippa Payne. She is an advocate in Christchurch for hundreds of Kiwi deportees. I started by asking what is a typical outcome for people when they arrive here?
So we have a lot of New Zealand detainees who have returned and they're actually living on the streets. They're helpless, they're homeless, and they really need us to stand up and start looking after them. We've had people land in New Zealand that have been given a cheque for $37 to see them through. We've had other people land in New Zealand given no money.
What do you say, Philippa, to people at home saying, well, these are bad guys, they're criminals, gang affiliates in some situations, don't they just sort of deserve whatever they have coming to them?
I don't believe so. I believe that there's no one in this world that is immune to misfortune. It doesn't matter whether you're gang affiliated, wearing a white suit as a lawyer, or being a doctor in a medical rooms. Everyone has misfortune, and if you're not given the skills and the ability to deal with those misfortunes, your pathway may not always be the best choice. When someone has made a mistake, is it not up to the rest of us to offer them help and support and to help to get them back on the right track?
Hey, we're happy to help you spread the message tonight, and we've actually got the Minister, Andrew Little, joining us. So what would you like to see from him?
If there's one thing that I'd like the New Zealand government to stand up and do, it's start advocating for some support for the guys when they're in detention centre. Why is the superannuation not released? If the superannuation for someone is released when they come back to New Zealand, they'll actually have financial support and empowerment and not go on our social welfare system, be able to afford housing and also be able to afford to relocate their family and their children to be with them. It would also be fantastic for the New Zealand government to start visiting the actual people that have been held in these detention centres and hearing from them themselves exactly what is going on.
Well, Philippa, thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you.
Back live now, and here to respond to some of that, please welcome Justice Minister Andrew Little. Hi, welcome to the show. A couple of really specific asks there. One is, well, let's talk about superannuation first. Is this a possibility of giving them access to some of that money that's coming back from Aussie?
It's not something that the New Zealand government gets to control. It's entirely Australian government's policy. And it's a bit like KiwiSaver here. You've got to lock it up till you're 65 unless there's exceptional circumstances. We have an agreement between New Zealand and Australia that if you can get your Aussie retirement savings, but it's got to go into a KiwiSaver account. And I doubt whether we're going to ever be able to advocate to get that changed.
So if you can't apply that kind of pressure, then what are you going to do? What is the next step?
Well, what we started when we were in opposition, myself, Kelvin Davis, other opposition MPs, including New Zealand First MPs like Winston Peters, and that is drawing attention to the issue and actually saying the rules that Australia is applying. And I think that where it really gets difficult is for people without a criminal conviction, but who have just decided, or the Australian government decides, they're not of good character. And that's a wide open field, very murky. Those are the people who are being treated most unfairly. And look, we're going to continue to draw attention to it and advocate to the Australian government through our usual sort of channels.
So if you're just drawing attention to it, though, like what can actually be physically done to help, you know what I mean? Like if you can't change the law, but all you can do is draw attention, what does that attention actually bring into action?
Yeah, we are the New Zealand government, not the Australian government.
Yeah,
so
I know that, but for the people that
kind of work on what we can do here. But because they are New Zealand citizens in Australia, and there's a reason why most Kiwis in Australia never take out citizenship. It's very expensive. The pathway to citizenship is so difficult. But that should not allow the Australian government to kind of treat people the way they have been when they are lining them up for deportation. Some of those deportations are justified. We deport people here who commit particularly serious crimes. It's an automatic deportation once you've done your sentence. And some of those people will fall into that sort of category. The difficulty is for those whose offending has been at the lower end and people who can kind of work and get a job, set up a business, as we saw in the interview. And the other is for people who are deemed not of good character, because who knows.
Can we give them more than $100 and a night in a motel? Because we give away better prizes on the rock.
Yeah, you're a New Zealand citizen, you get back here, then you got the full benefits of every New Zealand citizen. So we do look after people when they get here, as every other New Zealander does get looked after. The real issue is the problem in Australia.
All right, Justice Minister Andrew Little, please put your hands together for him.